Studio is Mark Francois, who is, of course, part of the European Research Group. The Star Chamber of the European Research Group is deliberating. What's going to happen today, Mark?
Right, if I can explain for you viewers, because we're talking about very complex areas of law and concepts of refoulement and what we have at our disposal, we're very fortunate, is a group of absolutely expert lawyers, chaired by Sibylle Cash, who's a respected constitutional lawyer in his own right, Martin Howard KC, Barnabas Reynolds and David Jones MP. They have spent the last week or so going through the bill in forensic detail, and the meeting that Chris referred to, which will be at noon today in Portcullis House, and a meeting of these 5 different groups, what you might call the 5 tribes of the centre and the right of the parliamentary party. Sibylle will address that meeting and deliver, if you like, the verdict of the Star Chamber on whether or not the bill will work. I've seen the report, and you and your viewers might like to know. That meeting is at noon because we felt that the MP should hear it from Sibylle first. I hope the media will respect that. But around 1 o'clock-ish, depending on how long the meeting lasts, we will then publish the report of the Star Chamber, it's about 10 pages, online, so that all the media can read it, and even more importantly, all the people of the United Kingdom can read it for themselves, if they so wish.
And if it says, Mark, it is unworkable, the bill in its current form, can you still support the bill tomorrow in the vote, knowing that you've got opportunities to amend it and perhaps mould it in the way you feel it should operate?
Andrew, let's see how the discussion goes. It could well be that there will be, as the phrase says, further such meetings later today. I think the Common Sense Group are meeting early this evening. We might well all go over to their place, as it were. So there will be a discussion all day and probably into tomorrow morning about how to vote. I've learned from past experience never to predict that way in advance. I think we need to hear from the horse's mouth, if you'll forgive the expression, what Sibylle and his team of legal experts have concluded. That obviously will inform the debate. But if the bill is deficient in certain aspects, if it won't do what it says on the tin, Sibylle and his team will explain why that is.
You talked there about 5 separate groups discussing this bill, 5 different factions within the Tory party. Isn't this the overwhelming problem here, that the Tory party is careering towards defeat at the next election because you are all so completely fractured?
Well, we need to get this right. The Prime Minister faithfully promised the British people he would stop the boats. Now, in fairness...
Should he have ever said that?
Well, some people may have advised him and his team not to be quite so emphatic.
I think they did advise him that.
Anyway, they were. Stop the boats is a binary statement. It doesn't say reduce the flow or hold them up a bit. It says stop. We have, in fairness, reduced the flow. The Prime Minister was involved in negotiations with his Albanian counterpart, and many of the Albanians are now being returned very fast. The reason you don't see it on the television is because the Albanians didn't want that. So there is a reduction, but it's not stop. The key question is, will this bill, if it comes into law, actually stop the boats? Will it provide sufficient legal power to immediately deport to Rwanda anyone who comes across the channel illegally on a boat? And at noon today, Sibylle Cash will answer that question.
Or is it the case that what could happen is that a very small number of people will go to Rwanda before the next election and the Prime Minister can go, yay, this is working? And the only focus is on the election, not whether actually this plan works long term.
Well, a few people probably wouldn't cut it. The point of the Rwanda scheme is to be a deterrent. I mean, what's going on here? You have utterly amoral people traffickers charging people up to €10,000, so we're told, to undertake a perilous journey across the busiest shipping lane in the world, and deeply unfortunately, some of those people have drowned mid-channel. The people traffickers don't care. They just want the money. The only way that will stop is when people can see self-evidently that even if you get across the channel, even if you pay the 10,000 euros and you get to Britain, you will rapidly go to Rwanda. You won't be able to string it out with endless legal appeals and court cases and clever legal arguments. You'll be on a plane very swiftly to Rwanda. At that point, the boats should stop because people will stop paying the money. So, to answer your question, sorry, just sending a few won't cut it. You're going to have to send quite a lot. So the word gets round.
Even if the boats are stopped, Mark, and that's a big if, isn't it? What about the numbers of people pouring into this country legally? What was it, 700,000? But 1.2 million came in. And then, but a lot of people left, probably young, bright people from Britain going elsewhere. I mean, these numbers are unsustainable legally.
They are unsustainable. That's why, to be fair, the government announced last week a whole package of measures to cut those numbers quite dramatically. Things like restricting the ability of students to bring dependents with them when they come to study in Britain. From the briefing I saw, the sum total of those measures should reduce that total by approximately, round numbers, 300,000 within a year or so. You've got to remember part of that number, and you're right, it's a net figure, Andrew. Part of that number are Ukrainians coming over because of the war. I think most of my constituents wouldn't begrudge them that. You've then got, for instance, Afghan interpreters who help British forces. I don't think my constituents would begrudge them that. What I think really enrages them more than anything are people who are primarily, in most cases, coming in illegally across the channel as economic migrants.
But it's a fraction of the problem. I know we want to deter them, but it's a fraction of the problem. Should the government's focus be on getting this 745,000 figure down, not on...
Well, I think, to be honest, we've got to address both. Now, we've had two previous pieces of legislation on this. We had the Nationalities and Borders Act 2021, which was meant, at least in part, to address the boats problem. That didn't work. We had the Illegal Immigration Act 2023, same thing. That hasn't worked. So this is kind of the risk is that the electorate will say 3 strikes and you're out. And I was out canvassing the other Saturday morning in my constituency in the freezing cold, and my constituents made it pretty plain to me. They expect legislators to sort this. I mean, one summed it up very well. He said, look, I don't understand all this legalese. I elect people like you to sort that out. Do whatever you've got to do to stop these boats coming. You're an MP, sort it out. Now, in France last week, according to Le Monde, the French deported an Uzbek alleged terrorist who's been a big issue for them for years. Irrespective of the ECHR, they just did it. The French cabinet is not as obsessed with the ECHR as half our cabinet.
Quite.
That is part of the problem. But I think the British people want these boats stopped and they want their legislators to do whatever is necessary